Hi, I'm Gabby MacSweeney and I'm joined by Ruben Miessen, and this is LegalFly's On the Record, where we discuss hard news and hot takes in the world of legal and AI. So how are you doing this week, Ruben?
Doing amazing. It's been a very, very busy week so far.
Lots of globe-trotting since the last time we saw you, so we're glad to have you in the office in London again today. But let's dive straight into it. We've got loads of great news stories to cover this week. So in the first story of the week, Gartner says that legal tech budgets will double by 2028. And I think this brings up two questions. First, where is that money coming from? And then what is it going towards? So Ruben, what's your take?
But it's definitely, I think, an interesting insight, because what we've realized with our existing clients is exactly the same, that budgets are definitely shifting. Legal spend is shifting from being spent externally to being spent in-house. So where in the past, the organizations, especially the enterprises, were outsourcing a lot of the legal work, and not just strategic work, but also a lot of the commodity legal work. Now they're empowering the internal teams by giving them the right tools to be able to handle a much bigger workload.
And in terms of this money then, so you think it's coming from the legal services budget. Is it also coming from the headcount budget?
It's coming from different sides, and it also depends on which team you're empowering. At LegalFly, we see it as well. We often work with the legal team, but we also often work with different business teams. Sometimes it's the HR team, and then the budget is partially legal, partially HR in that case.
Yeah, and I think that's really around the kind of, where is this budget going to? Do you see it going towards, greater usage of the same tools? Do you see people building out many different tech tools in their legal AI stack?
What we're seeing is that definitely our clients are trying to consolidate their legal tech stack, and they're looking for one tool, one end-to-end solution that basically becomes the legal operating system for the entire enterprise, whether it's the legal team, whether it's the procurement team, whether it's compliance, a claims, or an HR team. They're all looking for the same operating system underneath, where those teams can collaborate and get their legal processes executed.
Yeah, I do think that kind of the first piece is really the reason why the budgets are needing to expand, is because more and more the legal work can be distributed to some extent across the business. So you're not just talking about a license for the legal team, but people who are interfacing with the legal team and how that can work and how you can collaborate between those teams. But also, I think at this stage, as we start to see this trend, and who knows if it will be a doubling, it could be more, it could be less, but that is certainly the trend and the way things that are going. People need to think a little bit proactively about their tech stack. What are the different areas they're going to need, and what tools do they need? The fewer, the better, the less integration, the less complexity, the less duplication of functionality that you're going to have there.
And I think what's important as well when you select the right tool for your legal tech stack is that the tool should be able to take care of the boring legal work, the easy legal work, but at the same time, especially for an enterprise organization, the solution should be able to mimic a more complex, sophisticated legal enterprise workflow to do a full execution of legal work from A to Z, because the purpose is really to get the legal team sometimes less involved or as little involved as possible into legal processes within the other teams if it's not necessarily needed.
Yeah, so not cutting out the legal team, but just making sure that they're included only where they're needed and not where they're not.
And that they're spending their time on most of the strategic work where they're really needed. Yeah, 100%.
So let's move to our next story. So I think we're seeing a real shift in the market now in terms of how people are evaluating, particularly legal AI. When we started on this journey, there was amazing flashy demos from lots of AI companies. It's so impressive the first time you see it. Now clients are pushing more and more for what is the ROI, and how can we see that there is adoption and usage of these products. Ruben, what are you seeing on that front?
Well, I think in terms of the demos, since the very beginning of LegalFly, we've also been publicly advocating for, never trust the sales demos, never trust the sales teams, never trust the LegalFly sales team. Always, when you are part of a product demo, bring your own documents, bring your own questions, and try to break the product. Really figure out if the solution you're looking at is a fit and is able to automate your internal legal workflows for your documents in your jurisdiction, for the teams that you need. And what's very important actually prior to procuring a legal AI solution is also to make the business case internally. What does it mean if the solution is saving you X amount of time or is capable of executing and automating that work? And creating those business cases together with our existing clients is key to prove the value and to prove the ROI of the solution.
And personally, I see it as a really positive change. It's a sign that buyers are getting more savvy. And as a legal tech provider, we've been trying to push these business cases for quite some time. I think the practical challenge is that legal as a department are often not set up for having the initial benchmarks to be able to make those ROI equations. They're measured by risk and the risk that they are protecting the business from. They don't necessarily know things like turnaround time, what they're spending their time on. And actually, that is a big benefit of legal tech solutions, is that with the analytics, you can suddenly start to see, hey, how long are things taking us? How many tasks are we doing? Who is doing what in the team, and that actually builds you that starting point to start to measure that ROI going forward.
But that's also what made us really excited to build, not just for the legal teams, but build for those business teams, because the legal team is often looked at as a cost center within the organization. So it's tougher for a legal team also to create a proper business case on what a solution like LegalFly is capable to realize for them, what the impact is. While if we look at the different process, for example, within the claims team, and we're automating incoming claims requests that are coming in, and we're managing for one of our clients, for example, there was a monthly quota of handling 150 cases per month. That was how they were running it before implementing LegalFly manually. After they implemented LegalFly, they realized that they could process between 600 and 700 cases a month. So they did a 4x almost on the amount of cases that the same team is capable of handling. But that's amazing, and that's a business case that came from a different team, a business team, the claims team. And of course, it's a legal workflow that we're automating, but then the ROI for the business that we're managing to realize is immense.
And I remember kind of relatively early on in the days of LegalFly, trying to have conversations with lawyers about, well, if you turn around this sales contract quicker, then the revenue is going to come in faster. That has the revenue impact on the business. Funnily, it didn't really seem to resonate, but I think that is the difference when you start talking to those other teams, when you start talking to the sales teams, etc. There's really that shift in how people see it. But at the same time, I always think, stats is something that anyone can put on their website. You hear them all the time, some credible, some not credible. I think it's always the most important thing for me in marketing is that stats are always grounded in a specific data point from a particular client. If we say, we think you can get this ROI, that is an example of that's something one client has said to us, specifically.
Yeah, 100%. And we love to spend more time with every client individually to get a good understanding of their internal legal workflows, their legal processes, and then we can co-create a business case together for them based on their workflows for their organization.
So in news around foundational models, we've also seen that OpenAI has recently hired one of the founders of Ironclad to lead its legal vertical. And it's also announced Codex Sites, which is going to be a competitor to Lovable and allow users to create their own shareable internal apps. Quite a move in the direction from the foundational models. How do you see this, and what's the impact on the legal AI sector?
Well, I find it interesting that the platform providers are trying to get into different verticals right now. So in a way, they're cannibalizing their initial clients or partners actually by bypassing or cutting them out partially and going to the end client or the end consumer directly. I think in certain industries, when it's B2C or when you're selling to long tail or startups, it makes a lot of sense. And to organizations where the go-to-market strategy is to sell towards those startups or smaller SMBs, it's a direct threat to their business. I think when you're selling to an enterprise organization, it comes with a different complexity, and it also comes with a different delivery model and support model towards those clients and different data security requirements that come alongside it as well. And I think especially for the enterprise segment, I think there is a very strong need for a specialized, verticalized solution, whether it's legal, whether it's finance, whether it's engineering, doesn't really matter. So it's an interesting move, and I'm very curious to see how it plays out. But I think for the enterprise segment, the impact will be rather limited.
So you don't think OpenAI is coming for LegalFly?
I think they're definitely trying. That's what we're definitely seeing. But to be honest, if I just look at the conversations we're having with the existing clients we have, it's an amazing tool. What I've seen and the Codex Sites, I love it. Also Cloud for Legal, I love it. Tried it myself. Almost all of our clients have tried it, but it's for a different audience. It's not for an enterprise organization. There is no ability to mimic the enterprise workflows. From a data security perspective, they're rather light, to be very honest. And yeah, there is no delivery model around it. There is no assistance with change management, with adoption, with onboardings, etc.
That is the thing that's going to really be the differentiation factor going forward, isn't it? You know, the functionality, it might be possible with a mixture of N8N and Claude Legal to do pretty much exactly the same thing as any legal tech tool.
But then you'll get a Frankenstein monster, and especially if you want to have one legal system for all of those different business teams, and they all need to start cutting and pasting everything together, yeah, you will not end up with a reliable solution for the business, and you will open up the business to too much risk and change management if you're trying to push that solution forward.
And it's not even just, you know, a project manager. It's that, you know, legally trained specialists, the lawyers in the legal engineering team that are going to embed themselves in your business, build your workflows, advice, and that's where we believe we can make the difference, really.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so we've talked about ROI, but in the AI world, costs are also starting to come up a lot more. So recently, Uber capped AI coding spend after blowing through its budget. They were reportedly capped usage at $1,500 per month per tool after spending ran ahead of budget. So it prompts the question, really, are companies about to discover the AI bill before they discover the ROI?
Well, it's a good question, and we see it in the legal tech space as well. There are a lot of solutions, they're growing very rapidly, but if you look at the underlying metrics of the business, the gross margins, for example, which are heavily influenced by the LLM processing costs, they're in a very unhealthy state. So growth at all costs in Gen AI is not the right approach. I think you need to build, as a founder, a more sustainable business moving forward. But it also means that when you're building a solution, there are a couple of technical decisions that are quite important to make to build a solution that is, in some cases, not overkill. So LegalFly is also, it's an end-to-end solution. We have built dozens of different agents. We empower hundreds of different workflows. But every workflow is powered by a different agent, and every agent can be powered by a different LLM, or a different version of the LLM underneath. So it's, and that's, I think, what's quite important. You want to use the best LLM possible, for example, for a specific query, without shooting at it with a bazooka, because the cost will significantly increase. And also, it doesn't make sense to do 20, 30, 50, sometimes 100 LLM calls about the same topic that you're trying to answer. So I think what companies often forget is that they're growing extremely rapidly. They're focused on growing at all costs, but then the underlying infrastructure of the technology as well is scaling in a way that doesn't make sense over time. So yeah.
And I think the technology is so new, right, that people don't necessarily have an understanding of what prompt or what task might cause 10x credit usage versus 2x credit usage. And I think there's probably also that just education of how cost is measured there as well.
Yeah, and for some use cases, maybe it doesn't make sense to go for a full agentic solution to power it. That could also be the case. So the business case needs to be made with the client, of course, but also needs to be made internally. Like as a business, what are the use cases that you want to focus on? If you're going to answer one question and it's querying a couple of millions of documents within the environment of a client, and that one query is going to cost you a couple of hundreds of dollars, we've seen it. That's not a use case that as a legal tech company you want to focus.
And it prompts an interesting question, right? Because tools like LegalFly, like others, are still charging their clients by user in some instances.
Most cases, yeah.
In most cases. And you're seeing things like Claude start to implement their credit system, ChatGPT, etc. There's that disconnect between how the AI companies are being charged by the foundational models and how they're passing costs on to their clients.
And that's a bit the challenge sometimes, because the legal tech startups and scale-ups, they're being charged based on consumption, but they're often selling it as seats towards their clients. And the reason that the business model of the startups is seat-based is because when you're selling to those organizations, it's much easier for the procurement teams as well to create a fixed budget that's fixed for the year without giving like a blanco check where they don't know where they're going to end up at the end of the year. And that's what's happening with Uber. Like the engineering teams are using the different coding tools almost infinitely, but then they end up with bills that are a couple of billions actually at the end of the year. So they need to introduce a cap.
Yeah, I think that's totally it's totally right, really, in that you need to work for your customers how they want to be charged in many ways, and what teams want is a reliable budget, something that they can predict. Otherwise, they're never going to be able to create that business case that we talked about at the beginning of the session.
No, yeah, and the business case will never end up with a positive ROI if on the side of the AI provider it's just an unlimited consumption-based plan.
So moving the circle in a bit, let's talk about what's been happening at LegalFly in the last couple of weeks. And very excitingly, we have had our new VP of Customer Success, Theodora, join the team just last week. What are your thoughts, Ruben?
Yeah, so there are a couple of reasons why we brought in an amazing VP of Customer Success. And I think Theodora is an amazing fit to the team, also because of her experience. She used to lead the account management teams at LexisNexis for over 10 years. So she brings an insane wealth of experience to the table. But interestingly, if you look at our existing client base, almost all of those clients have been expanding, and expanding not just within the existing teams, but going from the legal team into those business teams, the procurement team, the compliance team, the claims team, the HR team, just by themselves. Like, we have been very reactive on that approach. And we have plenty of clients that within their first term, within their first year, have expanded more than 10 times already. So we definitely want to be more proactive on that. So that's why we decided, okay, let's scale the customer success team. Let's bring in amazing leadership there as well. So we can now proactively start expanding the clients and the book of accounts that we have.
And it's great also to strengthen our presence in the MENA region as well. It means that we now have our leadership team distributed across Belgium, the UK, and Dubai. So I think that naturally shifts emphasis and ensures that we're treating that market that we operate in with the specialism that it deserves as well.
Yeah, 100%. And we're very strong in continental Europe and the UK already. But if we're seeing the traction that we're realizing in a very short amount of time in the Middle East and in Asia, we definitely want to double down on that opportunity as well. So it's amazing to see that the Dubai team is growing rapidly too.
And in other news, as well as New York and San Francisco, you've been in Amsterdam on an offsite with the sales team. What were you discussing and how did that go?
Well, it's amazing. So the sales team is still a rather lean team. We currently have 7 account executives in the team spread globally. But we've grown 12x on AR just since last year, January alone. So it's amazing what the team is achieving. Very proud. And we're going to double the team of account executives between today and the end of the year. So there were plenty of topics to discuss on how we will do some restructuring moving forward to make the team even more efficient, to be much more aggressive on taking over the market.
And every kind of shift like this, where you start to think about that next level of scale, the first thing that has to come is your shift in thinking. Getting you, but then first bringing the team along to think bigger and think differently. And I think that's when those offsites are so useful.
100%. And I very much remember like the last dinner on the last evening of the offsite. It was amazing. We were all pitching also stand by one, giving a speech, because we all realized this is actually the last dinner in a very cozy group of just 7. The next time we have the offsite will be at least with 15 people. So like, people even got a little bit emotional of understanding that they were part of the very early phase of scaling LegalFly, and now we're growing up and the baby is maturing and becoming a teenager.
Soon there's going to be many nostalgic pints pining for the early days at LegalFly, but much excitement still to come, right?
100%. Very much looking forward to it.
Okay, so in our final story of the week, the Pope has been weighing in on AI. So he has produced a lengthy document where he wrote that AI systems may imitate language, behavior, and analytical skills, and even simulate sympathy, but they don't have an understanding of what they produce. So therefore, moral responsibility cannot be transferred and should not be transferred to automated systems, regardless of how sophisticated they come. So are you with the Pope or not?
First of all, I think it's amazing that the Pope is becoming part of the AI discussion. I think that's great. And to be very honest, I fully agree with his opinion. I think we should use AI purely for automating and executing logical things, rational things, where there is a whole playbook laid out and the law needs to be followed and executed basically at speed, repetitively. Then I think AI is amazing. So really look at it as a productivity tool rather than a replacement for human behavior. You know, on Instagram, for example, you're often seeing those advertisements as well about an AI girlfriend, which is a bit sad when I see it, you know, that people are really downloading those ads.
I'm not getting those ads. I'm not getting those ads. Maybe they're targeted, Ruben.
But I hope not. I hope not. But that's what you're seeing, you know. So that's a bit of a pity, and I think I definitely share his opinion. Where let's use Gen AI for the better, for the good, and let's really look at it as an amazing productivity tool, but not as a replacement for any human or emotional interactions.
Well, that's a wrap. And next episode, we'll be joining you from Portugal at our all-company offsite with some more hot takes and hard news in the world of legal and AI.